Have you ever looked at another leader's ministry, their business, maybe family, or even marriage, their success, and thought, man, why can I be there? I know I have. And in those moments, something subtle starts to happen in me. Nothing about my life actually changes. My calling doesn't change. My opportunities doesn't change. God's faithfulness doesn't change. But I know I change. Comparison quietly shift how I see things. And there's something I've learned even as a leadership coach, man, comparison doesn't distort your perspective. It just slowly drains your health. And it could cost you your clarity. It can steal your joy. And even if it's left unchecked, it begin impacting your soul, your relationships, and even your calling. And that's why this conversation matters, because we just don't want to have effective leaders. We want to have healthy leaders. And to be a healthy leader, to stay healthy. And today we're having this conversation about probably one of the quietest threats to our leadership, the comparison game. How we have to stay faithful to our calling, even when we're constantly exposed to everyone else's success. And to help this unpack here, I'm joined by my friend, Michael, someone who has spent years help navigating leaders, their identity, their clarity, and emotional and spiritual health. So, hey, Michael, thanks for being here. Welcome to the pod. Tell us a little about who you are and kind of the work you do.
For sure. Thank you so much, Zach. Appreciate your friendship and grateful for the opportunity to have a great conversation with you today. So my name is Michael Shafer. I'm a pastor in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. I've been here for about 10 or 11 years now. And about 7 years ago, my wife and I found ourselves in a season of ministry that was full of pain and full of hurt. And, it was not a good situation that we found ourselves in, as many in ministry do. And we had a group of people that came around us and supported us and lifted us up and encouraged us and really kept our heads above water during the most difficult season of our lives. And as they were doing that for us, one of the things that kept coming up to our minds over and over again was that there are so many pastors and ministry leaders out there who don't have that. If things start going wrong, if life gets really hard, if ministry gets really tough, they don't have someone that they can turn to that's going to help hold their arms up and keep their ministry going. And they don't even, a lot of them don't even have somebody to talk to when they just need to vent about, hey, you know what, I'm really frustrated with my ministry right now. And they just don't even have that to turn to.
Yeah.
And as we were thinking about how we can utilize the pain that we had experienced in a positive way, in a way that helps other people, Galatians 6:2 kept coming to our minds, to carry one another's burdens, and in this way you'll fulfill the law of Christ. And so we started a ministry called G6 Allies. So G6 obviously comes from Galatians 6:2, and the allies piece was we believe that everybody needs an ally, and that includes pastors. Pastors are people too. They need someone there that can help carry those burdens with them while they carry the burdens of their congregation. So that was 7 years or so ago. We started G6 Allies and have been going strong ever since. We do a handful of different things. We focus a lot on pastoral care for pastors, or ministry coaching, leadership development for staff teams, for volunteer teams, for individual pastors, and that can take a range of different forms and shapes. We've got a couple of different coaches who have different expertise areas that they can help guide you in. For me personally, my big area of expertise that I like to help coach ministry leaders is in personal finance, particularly in investing. So we have another arm of G6 Allies called Stocks for Pastors, where I on a weird turn of events, 16, 17 years ago, as a pastor, I got into trading stocks and actually did that as a primary source of income for a few years. And so I've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. And a few years ago, had a couple of guys ask me to help teach them how to do it as well. And thus Stocks for Pastors was born. And so I have a whole system helping pastors supplement their income with trading. And so, a range of different things that we do there for helping equip ministry leaders to fulfill their calling in life in a way that alleviates some of the other pressures that they experience. And then in addition to all of that, I am also a local pastor. So I'm a
Why
pastor
not, man?
at a
Right?
church right here in just north of
Yeah.
Tulsa. And I've been doing that the same amount of time, and we call it G6 Church because it shares the same heartbeat, the same mission. We're just a small group of people who want to carry one another's burdens well and help one another navigate through life in a way that makes us more like Jesus.
It's fun, man. You're doing great work. I'll put all that stuff you're in the show notes. Check out G6. I've been part of your team for a little bit, doing some and stuff, and so then done some podcasts and webinars and coaching with you guys. And it's a joy to be with you guys and partner with you. And Michael, as I thought about this conversation, I was just telling you off screen, man, how to lead without getting caught up in the comparison trap. Man, there's very few leaders that I've been a part of who actually do this well, and we all struggle with it, man. I struggle with it. And one of the things I appreciate about you and your friendship, that I think you have some expertise that you could share here. And you have, and just listen to you, man. You have a lot going on, and you feel like God's giving you an opportunity to lead, but you lead from a place, and as I know you, from a place of humility, not of chasing. And so I'm excited for you to really share your wisdom, your insight, because comparison, man, it could really just ruin us as leaders and pastors. And so I'm grateful for you being will here and kind of share what God's doing in your life and how you've led from this place and trying to lead from this place that we all struggle with in some capacity. And so let's just start in, jump in. Man, Michael, can you share a season when you felt comparison started to affect your leadership or your just kind of your spiritual health?
Yeah, and I appreciate the kind words that you said about me there, but I can say that has not always been the case. I have fallen prey to comparative nature many times, and for me, it's always been, and I think there's a couple of different ways that comparison, expresses itself in different people, and a lot of it depends on personality. But for me, it's always been not just a comparison, but a competitiveness. I've always been the guy. I have to win. Doesn't matter what we're doing, I have to win. If I'm driving down the road, I've got to pass the car in front of me. Right? We're not going to the same place. We don't have the same time frame. There's nothing about us that is aligned here. But I got to get in front of them because I've got to win, right? And some of you may resonate with that. Others may view the comparison thing more as a self-worth issue. That I don't have what this person has, and that means there's something wrong with me. Or I'm not doing what I should be doing because I should have that. And so there's a couple different ways that comparison fleshes itself out. But for me, it was always that aggressive competition style where if I was doing this, then I had to be faster at accomplishing a goal than the next guy, or I needed to outperform a colleague and somebody else who was on the staff team that I was on so that I could win. And what I found was that is not it's not a healthy place to be at all, and it's honestly it's a downright miserable way to exist. It's there's nothing fun about it. Winning is fun, but always having to win is not fun.
No.
And so I came to a realization that has to shift. I have to stop thinking about life in that terms. I got to stop thinking about individual events in that way. That not everything is a competition. Not everything is something that I need to compare with others. And when I started to wrap my head around that, I began to notice that I maybe enjoyed life a little bit more and wasn't just so bound up in the, hey, I've got to compete, I've got to win all the time. Which is hard to do for someone who grew up in sports and was an athlete through and through, and we always have to win. That's the nature of an athlete, but it ultimately doesn't lead you to a good place.
Yeah, I appreciate that you saying that, Mike. I'm the opposite, so I don't have the strong competitive side in me. Like I'm okay playing a board game and just having fun. I'm okay driving down the freeway and enjoying my own season and my own world. But man, comparison shows up for me in that place, and you said it, and so the root of it's still the same. Is there's a self-worth that's part of me there. Like I might have aspirations to be somewhere or go somewhere or do something, and so when I start comparing where I'm at today, and I go, man, how come I'm not there? That's where I want to be. There says something inside of me that where my self worth is, it starts getting questioned,
Yeah.
and so even though I might not be the competitive like you, the heart issue for me definitely can get stirred up. There's some self worth, self validating that I could struggle with,
Yeah.
and therefore that comparison piece really does start showing up in my life in really challenging ways that I have to be aware of as well.
Yeah. And I think there's, it, especially for those in a ministry capacity, a pastor, a nonprofit leader, there
Yeah.
just seems to be something about that vocation, the people that are drawn to or called to that kind of environment, where in my experience, they tend to be the ones that are most consumed by the comparison trap.
Hmm.
A lot of guys who, maybe they're an accountant, or they work in corporate America, or they run their own small business. They everybody, as you said, everybody deals with the comparison issue at some level and at some point. But and this is, I mean, anecdotal on my part, just based on my own experience. What I
Yeah.
collectively have seen is that pastors tend to struggle with this comparative nature more than a lot of other professions do.
Yeah.
Um, and I have an idea or two of why that might be, but I don't know if has that been your experience too, of seeing that among pastors being a real problem.
And yeah, either in the competitive piece or the sense of aspiration piece or ambition piece. And I think to me, the challenge becomes um, the tension that you in ministry you have to do. There's a work you have to do, and there's a dependency upon God you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And those things can get really confusing sometimes for us in ministry. And so when it becomes about me and having to prepare for Sunday, prepare for this, have this outcome, this thing, that then becomes more about charisma, or it also becomes more about just how competent you are.
Right.
Right. And so, and you, there's a lot of charismatic or really confident or competent people who can rally people for certain things or do stuff. And we could look at that and go like, that's the win. That's success. And that's something that I'm not saying if you're charismatic or have high competency that's you're not doing things, but there's also in ministry this piece of being dependent upon God and letting kind of abandoning your outcomes. Dallas Willard talks about, and
Mm-hmm.
letting God do the work through you. That it's just so much harder sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's that John 15 passage, abide in me, and I'll produce the fruit. And so that comparison piece really becomes a challenge. Do I really take Jesus at his word and abide in him, let him do the work in and through me for the ministry, not just my own personal life, but my ministry life? Or do I focus on the charismatic, competent, rally people to do certain things? That becomes a tension for a lot of leaders that I work with. How do I balance those two worlds in my life? And therefore the comparison piece. Well, if I could be a little more charismatic, or I could have a little more competence, then I could do this job, and elevate that over elevating the John 15 abiding in Christ and let Him do the work in and through you. And that's just really challenging for ministry leaders because Sunday's still coming. This is still coming. I got to recruit this many leaders. I got kids ministry leaders trumping out, and so you have to find this really tension you have to manage. That's been my experience for me personally and the people that I'm coaching, how to balance those two worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I see some of that same stuff as well, and I also see a major challenge for ministry leaders who, it's kind of the other side of the coin that you're talking about here, similar issue, uh, but their entire identity and existence as a person is tied to their job, right?
Yeah.
An accountant can check out at 5 o'clock and go home and live his other life and do whatever he wants. A manager can end their shift and she can go about her life and do whatever other hobbies she enjoys and all that. But
Yeah.
for pastors, there really is not a clear separation.
Yeah.
because you're on call all the time. When you go on vacation, people call you. When you go to bed at night, you got to keep your phone on in case someone needs something. And so there's never a time when you're not in that capacity as a
Yeah.
pastor. And so because we just fall further and further into that, which means however the church or the ministry that you're leading is going, you are inseparable from it.
Yeah.
And so if it's not accomplishing what you want it to accomplish, or you think it's lacking something, or you see something over here that looks better than what you're doing, it
Yeah.
immediately resonates with who you are as a person
Yeah.
rather than just the ministry itself.
That's good,
and,
man.
and that's a big draw for pastors when they
Yeah.
see that, to go, oh, this must be on me. And so
Yeah.
the comparison game really becomes internalized as a personal
Yeah.
problem, not just a vocation problem,
Yeah.
or this is we're just two separate entities. Here's the church, here's that church, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't become that anymore. It becomes, well, I should have that, I should be like that, I should be doing that, I'm not good
Yeah.
enough to do what that pastor's doing.
Yeah.
And that permeates every area of our life.
Yeah. I so appreciate it. And so, Michael, let's talk about the costs. What does comparison actually steal from a leader over time?
It's it steals a couple of things. I think, as I alluded to earlier on, it steals joy. I would say
Mhm.
first and foremost, it steals contentment and the ability to just exist in your life, and to be happy with where things
Mhm.
are, to be content with where things are, and to leave things that are not as good as you want them to be in God's hands, and
Yeah.
trust that He's gonna do His part with it. And obviously, when we ask this kind of question, it really becomes a question of how much should we just take our hands off, and what role does ambition play in this.
Sure.
And you know me well enough to know I'm highly ambitious. I'm a very driven person. I'm a
Yeah.
self-proclaimed workaholic. I'm working on that,
Me
but
too.
ambition has never been, or lack of ambition has never been an issue for me.
Yeah.
But ambition and comparison are not the same thing,
Yeah.
right? And when we align those two, when we confuse those two and think they are the same thing, we're going to be robbed of several key things. We're going to be robbed of the ability to unwind and to let down,
Yeah.
and just go, hey, I'm going to relax with my family tonight, and I'm not going to think about work. I'm not going to worry about work. Because when you
Yeah.
don't do that, when you're constantly comparing, and you're thinking, my ministry is here and this guy's ministry is here, how do I get up to that level?
Yeah.
Uh, Even when you're watching a movie with your family, you're thinking about how I get
Yeah.
over to here.
That's right.
Or so you're losing the presence or the present in time with your family, with other things that you're doing. You're not able to be where you are all the time, because you're constantly thinking about that
Yeah.
gap that exists right there. um, I think you lose clarity as well.
Mhm.
You begin thinking about things from a skewed lens. Whereas if you did not have that lens, if you could take those blinders off, you'd have a lot more clarity about your calling, about
Mhm.
the objectives you should be focused on, the things that you ought to be driven toward, where your ambition needs to be pointed, can be a little bit more crystallized
Yeah.
when we ignore the comparison problem. And um, I think you ultimately you're sacrificing good decision making. So
Mhm.
when you are ill content, when you are lacking clarity, when you're just frustrated,
Mhm.
it ultimately leads to exhaustion. In fact, for me, that's one of the ways I know when
Yeah.
I'm starting to slip into um, comparison, is when I feel very exhausted.
Yeah.
That's when I go, man, well, this guy's business is booming, and what am I not doing? That's a light bulb to me, a
Yeah.
trigger that, oh, hold on, I'm tired, I need to take a break.
Yeah.
Because if I'm rested, then I'm a lot more content, and I'm not
Mhm.
going to do the comparison game. So when I
Yeah.
start comparing, I know that that's a signal to me, just something I've learned over the years. This is
Yep.
when I need to start taking a break. So that's another piece that you're sacrificing is your own physical and emotional
Yeah.
stamina, right? But you're ultimately all of that feeds into the decisions that you make, the way you preach your sermons, the counseling that you do, the decisions you make for your team or for your business,
Yeah.
all of the decision factors that go into whatever your vocation is. Um, Comparison is going to skew all of those, and
Yeah.
it's going to lead you to making worse decisions than you would otherwise, and the
Yeah.
cost simply isn't worth it. It just
Yeah.
isn't.
It's good, man. Let me just pause here for a second as you're listening to this or watching this. Let me ask you this question. Where is comparison quietly affecting your leadership health? Where is it? Where is comparison quietly affecting your leadership health? And for me, the challenge as you're walking through those things, Michael, is when I start blaming other people, it's their fault. I'm not getting to where I need to be. All those things you describe are my light bulb when I start blaming. So not someone else's journey. I asked the question, but your journey. Where is comparison quietly affecting your leadership health in a challenging way? And so just something to think about and process as Michael's kind of walking through the costs there. Where are you feeling and sensing how it might be affecting you in negative ways? And so it just adds to the next question here, Michael. How do leaders actually break free from comparison in a meaningful, significant way that can really be helpful for them?
Yeah. Um, Obviously, when we get into the practical side of this, it obviously is easier said than done, right? I fully appreciate that and recognize that. That's kind of a
Yeah.
given. However, there are some pretty simple things that we can do to help break out of that. And I'll preface my answer by offering a resource to your audience for those that are readers, for those that struggle with this particular issue. This resonates with you, and you're like, hey, yeah, this is a problem for me. Uh, the best book I have read on this subject is by Benjamin Hardy. It's called The Gap and the Gain.
Hmm.
And in that book, and that book is exactly what we are talking about here. That there are two different ways of looking at things. Two different ways that we compare. And if you're living in the gap, you are always comparing where you are to where you think you should be, to where someone else is, and there's a gap between you and where you want to be, right? And if we live in that gap, you're never going to be happy in life. You're never
Hmm.
going to experience contentment or joy or whatever descriptor you want to put there, right? Because we are constantly comparing ourselves to someone else or to something else. And ultimately, a lot of times that happens because, and we don't realize that we're at two very different things. So the first thing I would tell you to do of how we break that cycle is to recognize that who it is or whatever it is that you are comparing yourself to is almost guaranteed to be at a different stage in their development than you.
Hmm.
So, if we're thinking about this in terms of our own journey or our own story, my chapter 7 doesn't compare to your chapter 20. They're just not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm in chapter 7 and I see you at chapter 20, of course I'm going to be unhappy. I'm going to be malcontent because I'm never going to bridge that gap because there's no way to bridge that gap. They're two different things.
Yeah.
And it's not even just chapter 7 and chapter 20. It's chapter 7 in one book and chapter 20 in a completely different book.
Yeah.
You can't make that comparison. You're
Yeah.
never going to be happy if you
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So that's the first step, is to recognize that that's where your mindset is taking you, and you're living in the gap, which is never going to lead you to a place of fulfillment in your life or in your ministry. Instead, we need to operate from a place of gain, and that is a comparison only to yourself and where
Hmm.
you were. So where I am now, I may not have achieved the goals I want to have achieved, but where can I look at my life right now and compare it to where I
Hmm.
was 6 months ago or
Yeah.
a year ago? And can I identify some wins of, hey, you know what? I am doing better at this now than I was. My ministry has grown in this particular area. You know, maybe we haven't developed this ministry as well as we want to, but this part is going really well. Or, you know, my business hasn't reached the sales goals that we wanted to achieve, but we have a much healthier staff team than we did 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So focus on the wins by how much you have personally gained
Hmm.
internally versus an external comparison.
Yeah.
And when we start to think that way, we're going to recognize just some shifts in our behavior and our mentality and the way we do things, which ultimately leads to even greater things down the road. So continually monitoring the gain that we experience, and I would think as a pastor, or as a Christ follower, you know, building some gratitude into that is always a good thing, right? That when we can be grateful for how far we have come, and show appreciation to the Lord that, hey, thank you for the grace you have shown me, for the way you have taught me, for the growth that I have seen, the discipleship that's happened in my life or my team's life over the last X number of months. That puts us mentally in a much better place going forward. I think another way that we overcome the comparison trap is to Sabbath regularly.
It's so hard.
So hard, yes, especially for workaholics like us, right? Like taking time.
Saturday is my Sabbath day, and it's a day I love and I hate at the same time.
Right, I know. Like, I'm ready for Saturday to get here so that Sunday can come and I can start working again.
Yes.
You know,
but it's so good for me, though.
Yes, it is good for us, and the more rested we are, the less tempted we are to compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
Another way is, you know, social media boundaries. Social media has done the greatest disservice to human beings in terms of comparison out of anything. It's so easy for us to see an Instagram post of a full room, and then you go to your church on Sunday and there's, you know, 85% of the chairs are empty, and that's discouraging. It's disheartening, and it just feeds right into the comparison game. So set boundaries around your social media intake, your social media practices. And along that same vein, the last thing I would add to it is we got to find a way to genuinely celebrate other people's wins.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, when they hear when even if it's a good friend says, you know, I'm like, hey, Zach, I had the best month my ministry has ever had.
Yeah.
You know, externally you may be like, yay, good job, that's awesome. But internally you're like, well, dang, why is my ministry? Why didn't I had a terrible month? Why isn't mine doing well? And some of us, I've even encountered those who will just say it. Well, I'm glad you had a good month, but that makes me feel like I'm failing because I haven't done something I should have done, and my ministry isn't growing like yours is.
Yeah.
And that's never going to lead us anywhere good.
No.
Let's find a way to genuinely celebrate something good. When Zach texts me and says, hey, I had a great month at church this past month, and we saw X, Y, and Z happen, I should genuinely be happy and excited for you that that's happening. And so maybe we simply, one of the things that we've started in our own church to help us in this regard is rather than asking someone, you know, how can I pray for you? Which seems like a weird thing to say, right? We don't ask that anymore. Instead, we ask, how can I celebrate with you?
Yeah.
What's something good that happened in your life this week that I can celebrate? Yeah. And so we've shifted to more of a positive focus. When we ask for a prayer request, it's always a negative thing, right?
Yeah.
It's always, you know, this isn't going well, or I'm struggling over here, or I've got a friend that has this issue, and it's always a negative approach to things. But when we change up that question and ask, you know, how can I celebrate with you? What's something awesome that's happening? What are you excited about right now?
Yeah.
Then I can get excited about that with you. And you know what's really interesting in all that, Zach? When we get excited about that, when you start telling me something that's going on in your ministry that you're excited about, that's going well, that's working well, I don't look at that and go, well, why isn't that working well for me? I look at that and go, that is exciting.
It is.
And I can build on that, and I can do X, Y, and Z. That's working for Zach. I can do
Yeah.
that here. That's where, learning from one another is very different from a comparison game, right?
It is.
And so
Yeah.
we are iron sharpening iron for sure,
Yeah.
but it's not in a comparative way. It's we're both working for the kingdom.
That's
Let's
right.
figure out how we can do this together in
Yeah.
completely different places, but learn from
Yeah.
each other and build on what each other's doing. And that's just a much healthier version of the kind of ministry I want to be a part of. And I think most people do. We just
Yeah.
aren't sure how.
How, man, that is so helpful and so good. And man, there's so much. I need to go back and reflect my own life just from the things you're saying there. And so I appreciate that. And I don't know, one of the things I see in coaching is just this clarity is one of the most greatest protectors of our leadership health. Leaders who know who they are, who have, and know what they're called to and how to live in those rhythms. And in my life, I call them life anchors. What are the life anchors? They're going to slow you down so you don't fall into the comparison trap things that you're going to fall into. And so if you need help talking through this, man, Michael's they do great things at G6. If I can help you process those things, man, reach out. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes having somebody come alongside your life to help you process the identity pieces, the rhythms that help you slow down before you fall into those traps are just so helpful. And so I just encourage you to reach out. We'd love to have conversations there. And so, and Michael, man, just to wrap us up here, there's leaders. I know it's not just one. There's leaders who are listening to this right now who just feel behind. They've already fallen into the trap. They're watching others grow, ministries grow faster. They feel more exhausted. They feel more tired. They feel like they might even want to give up to right now, or they just feel like it's just a mess, and not just externally, but internally with this challenge. What would you say to them today?
I'd first tell them, because I know how to answer this question because I answer it regularly, because I deal with a lot of people that are in that situation, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I tell them is recognize that you're not the only one. A lot of especially pastors, we fall into that that Elijah trap of, and God, I'm the only one that's left, right? I'm the only one who's doing what I should be doing, and it's just not working out for me. Poor, pitiful me. And you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And so it is super common to be in this kind of a position, and it's not fun. I fully get that, but you don't have to stay there. So the first thing I'm going to tell you to do, beyond acknowledging that you're not terminally unique in this regard, is to shed the negativity.
Yeah.
Any negative thoughts you have of, this guy's got something I don't have, this church is growing and mine isn't, this business is expanding into my territory and I don't like it and I don't know. Shed all the negative thoughts, and let's go back to that gap and gain concept, because all of the negativity is in the gap. None of it is in the gain. So let's go back and let's do an evaluation, and let's take an inventory of where you are right now, personally, in your church, in your business, and let's compare it to where you were 12 months ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago. And I'll walk through that with you. And okay, where have you seen growth? What are the good things that have happened, and how are you celebrating the good things? And then how did those good things happen? What steps did you do to make them happen? Where were you instrumental in making that occur?
Yeah.
And why are you not doing more of those things? Because I can promise you, if you're doing more of the things that led to the growth that you have seen over the last 12 months, you're going to get much further ahead than you will if you're constantly comparing yourself to someone else and trying to reverse engineer whatever they're doing. Focus on where you're at and the objectives in front of you and how you got to where you are, and build on that rather than comparing to someone else.
So good, man. Well, Michael, I think, man, through your wisdom today, man, if people want to learn more about what you do or G6 or stuff like that, where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, g6allies.com.
Okay.
Super easy. Send me an email, michael@g6allies.com. Would love to engage with you and learn more about your ministry and see how I can help.
Yeah, they're doing great stuff, man. I encourage you to check out. They do a lot of great things there. So go on their website, check it out, reach out to Michael, and you'll be encouraged, be blessed. I know I have numerous times as being part of their ministry there as well. So, man, as we close today, I want to leave you with this reminder. You don't have to lead like anyone else to be effective. Your calling is not measured against someone else's timeline. Your worth isn't measured against someone else's platform. Your success is not measured against somebody else's influence. God has entrusted something unique to you. And your goal is not to compare. Your goal is to have healthy, faithful leadership. Because at the end of the day, comparison will cost you your health, but clarity can come back and it can restore it. So as we wrap up, the question I want you to sit with as you think about this conversation, where have you been measuring instead of stewarding what God has given to you? And if comparison is something you are consistently wrestling with in your leadership, in your relationships, or in your calling, that's exactly the kind of work I do. I know Michael does this work in coaching leaders, and we want to help. We want to help you restore the clarity, strengthen your identity, and build healthy leadership rhythms so you can lead without losing your soul, without losing your marriage, or even your calling. And so you can learn more in the podcast notes here. And so thank you for being part of it. Michael, thanks for joining us. And if you like this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, man, leave a review, share it with a leader who can use some encouragement today. Thanks for listening, because remember, being a healthy leader means staying a healthy leader. Have a great day.